The unseen threads. The small town of Eldermore had always harbored secrets, but none were quite as dark as the one that connected Clara to the shadowy figure who had raised her. For 17 years, she had lived a life of apparent normalcy, until the first cracks in her reality began to show on a cold October evening. Clara had always been fascinated by the town's annual Fall Lantern Festival. The flickering lights, the rustle of leaves, and the low hum of whispered stories filled her heart with a strange sense of longing. But this year was different. This year, her parents, Lenora and Edward, seemed unusually tense. "Don't wander off," Lenora had said, her grip on Clara's arm tight, her eyes darting around the crowd. The words felt heavy, almost like a warning. But Clara was no longer a child. At 17, she was restless, curious, and drawn to the mysterious. So when a classmate, Evie, excitedly pulled her toward a secluded path leading to the lake, Clara hesitated only for a moment before following. The lake was a mirror under the moonlight, its surface broken only by the gentle ripples of a cool breeze. Evie was chatting animatedly about a local legend, the echo of the vanished, a ghostly presence said to haunt the lake and call to those lost in the woods. "You're a lot like the stories," Evie said suddenly, her tone shifting. "Always out of place, never quite fitting in." Clara laughed nervously. "Thanks for the compliment, I guess." But Evie's face was serious. "No, I mean it. You don't look like them. Your parents, I mean." The words stung more than Clara wanted to admit. She had heard it before, the subtle remarks, the pointed glances. Something about her always seemed off. But what Evie said next shook Clara to her core. "You remind me of someone I saw in an old newspaper. A baby that went missing years ago. The shadow of the past." The notion lodged itself in Clara's mind, festering like a splinter she couldn't remove. That night, when Lenora and Edward were asleep, Clara crept into the attic. It was a place she was forbidden to go, but she needed answers. She sifted through boxes of old photographs, papers, and trinkets until she found it, a faded birth certificate. The name on it wasn't hers, it was Leona Meyer's. Heart-pounding, she opened more boxes, uncovering baby clothes, hospital records, and finally, a clipping from a newspaper. The headline read, "Infant disappears from Eldermore General Hospital, parents desperate for answers." Beneath it was a grainy photo of a couple holding an infant. The man and woman looked nothing like Lenora and Edward. But the baby had Clara's eyes. The revelation. Confronting Lenora and Edward was inevitable, and Clara did so with the intensity of someone whose entire world had just been shattered. They denied it at first, but their lies crumbled under the weight of her evidence. "Yes," Lenora whispered finally, her voice trembling. "You're not ours. We found you, Clara, we saved you." "Saved me?" Clara's voice broke. "From what?" Lenora and Edward exchanged a look, one so filled with fear that Clara's blood ran cold. "The forest," Edward said. "You were left in the forest, alone. We heard your cries during the Lantern Festival. We thought we were doing the right thing. But something followed you. The return." Clara's nights grew restless after that revelation. She dreamed of the forest, of a dark figure watching her from the shadows. She felt its pull, a magnetic force that seemed to whisper her true name, Leona. The final confrontation came during the next Lantern Festival. Clara, unable to ignore the voices in her dreams, ventured into the forest alone. The trees closed in around her, and the air grew heavy with an unnatural stillness. At the lake, she saw it, a figure cloaked in shadow, its face obscured. It reached out to her, and in its hand was a locket. Inside the locket was a picture of a baby and the word Ileona. "You were mine," the figure hissed, its voice like rustling leaves. They took you. But you've always belonged to me. The unseen threads. Clara's screams echoed through the forest, heard only by the trees. By morning, she was found by the lake, clutching the locket, her eyes filled with a distant, haunted look. She returned to Lenora and Edward, but she was never the same. Some nights, townsfolk claimed to see a figure in the woods, watching the house where Clara lived. And on those nights, Clara would sit by her window, staring into the darkness, as if waiting for something, or someone, to return.